Somebody just spent $200,000 on a tiny home. A tiny home, not a Manhattan penthouse, not a beach house in Malibu. A tiny home, and right next to it, someone else built the exact same footprint for $50,000. So here's the question I want you to sit with. If you spend $200,000 on a tiny home in 2026, can you still call it affordable housing? Or have we completely lost the plot? Stay with me, because before this video is over, I'm going to show you a real side-by-side breakdown of exactly what $50,000 gets you versus what $200,000 gets you in 2026, including every sneaky hidden cost that most builders will never tell you about. And right at the end, I am giving you my honest verdict on which budget actually makes sense for your situation. According to the 2026 Tiny Housing Industry Cost Report, build type alone determines about 70% of a tiny home's final price. So the answer is probably not what you think. Do not tap out early. If you're new here, this channel is all about real numbers. No fluff, no sponsored nonsense. Hit subscribe right now so you never miss a video like this one. And drop a comment below and tell me which price tag scares you more, $50,000 or $200,000. I read every single comment. Let us start with a reality check, because the numbers in 2026 might genuinely surprise you. The average tiny home build this year spans a wide range. If you're doing it yourself, you might get away with $35,000 to $55,000 in materials. But if you are hiring a professional builder, entry-level pro builds in 2026 now rarely start below $55,000 to $60,000. That floor has moved up significantly in the last 12 months. And the market does not stop there. It stretches all the way up to $180,000 and beyond for high-end custom tiny homes. We're not talking cabins in the woods. We are talking architect-designed, smart home integrated, off-grid capable luxury, small homes. So how do we get here? Three things happened at the same time in the housing market. Material costs kept shifting up. Skilled labor got harder to find and more expensive. And demand for tiny homes exploded because traditional housing became completely out of reach for millions of people. The national median home price hit $390,000 in April 2026. And in most desirable markets, it is well over $420,000. So even a $200,000 tiny home can look like a bargain on paper. But is it really? That is exactly what we are here to find out. Here is a number most people do not realize. Tiny homes actually cost more per square foot than traditional homes. A lot more. We are talking $200 to $400 per square foot in 2026, with high-end custom builds now pushing $450 per square foot due to precision labor costs. Compare that to $150 to $200 per square foot for a traditional build. The reason comes down to what is called the fixed cost problem. Every home, no matter how small, needs a full kitchen, a bathroom, an electrical panel, plumbing, and insulation. Those core system costs do not shrink just because your footprint does. They get spread across fewer square feet, which drives up the per foot price dramatically. So with that context locked in, let us get into the real meat of this video. We're going to walk through both budgets line by line, with real 2026 numbers. Starting with the budget build. A budget in the $50,000 to $60,000 range puts you in a real, livable tiny home in 2026. This is not fantasy. This is not a tent with walls. But you need to know exactly what that budget buys and where the limits are. At this price point, you are looking at a semi-professional build in the range of about 150 to 200 square feet. Think of a solid 20-foot tiny home on wheels with standard but fully functional finishes. Here is a realistic line item breakdown for this budget. Trailer or foundation, $7,500. Frame and shell, $12,000 to $16,000. Roofing and exterior, $4,000 to $6,000. Windows and doors, $2,000 to $4,000 in double pane vinyl. Insulation, $2,000 to $3,000. Electrical panel and wiring with a 30-amp grid-tied connection, $3,000 to $5,000. Plumbing and fixtures, $3,000 to $5,000. Kitchen cabinets and basic appliances, $3,000 to $5,000. Interior finishing with standard laminate flooring, $3,000 to $5,000. Loft, stairs, and storage, $2,000 to $3,000. That gets you a functional kitchen, a real bathroom with a proper shower, and enough storage to actually live comfortably. You are not roughing it, but you are getting a standard mini split for heating and cooling, double pane vinyl windows, and plywood interior finishes. Nothing wrong with any of that. Just know what you're getting. Now here is the part builders almost never advertise up front: the hidden costs. Permits alone will run you $500 to $3,000 depending on your county. Utility hookups, connecting to water, sewer, and electric, that is another $2,000 to $15,000 if you're going grid-tied. If you want off-grid solar and water systems instead, budget $10,000 to $30,000 on top of your build cost. Land rental at a tiny home community is now running $300 to $1,000 per month in 2026. And in premium tiny home villages in states like Florida or Colorado, that number is climbing towards $700 to $1,000 a month as those communities add fiber optic internet and lifestyle amenities. Insurance is another $500 to $1,500 per year. And always budget an extra 15 to 20% on top of your build cost for surprises. On a $60,000 build, that is $9,000 to $12,000 sitting in reserve. So the honest all-in number for this budget tier is closer to $75,000 to $90,000 once you factor in permits, hookups, and a contingency fund. Still very achievable. Still genuinely affordable compared to a $400,000 traditional home. But not quite the $50,000 dream you see on Instagram. Now here is where it gets really interesting. Because the jump from $60,000 to $200,000 is not just about nicer countertops. There are some genuinely legitimate reasons why people spend 4 times as much, but there are also some seriously questionable ones. Let's break it all down, and then I'm going to show you the actual side-by-side comparison table. $200,000 on a tiny home. Let us see what you're actually buying. At this price point, you are typically looking at a custom-built, architect-designed home somewhere between 300 and 500 square feet, often 36 to 38 feet long. This is a full-featured small home with intentional design, premium materials, and serious energy systems. Here is what that $200,000 build usually includes. A heavy-duty gooseneck trailer or custom foundation running around $18,000. High-performance spray foam insulation and triple-pane European tilt-turn windows for serious energy efficiency. A full 10-kilowatt solar array with battery backup and a smart electrical panel, making you largely or entirely energy independent. A custom kitchen with quartz or reclaimed wood countertops, a full-size range, and integrated appliances. Multi-zone heating and cooling with an ERV, which stands for Energy Recovery Ventilator, to continuously cycle fresh, filtered air through the home. Radiant floor heating. A full bathroom with a soaker tub or walk-in wet room. Smart home systems, automated lighting, and climate control. Custom built-in storage throughout every wall. A covered deck integrated into the design. And critically in 2026, RVA certification or full building code compliance. That last point, RVA certification, is more important than most people realize. Here is the honest reality in 2026. Many banks now flat out refuse to finance a tiny home without an RVIA certification sticker. No sticker means cash-only buyers only. A $200,000 tiny home without RVIA certification is a serious resale nightmare that locks you into an extremely small pool of buyers who can pay cash. If you're spending this kind of money, that certification is not optional. It is essential. Now, do all those upgrades justify $140,000 more than the $60,000 build? Some of them genuinely do from a long-term cost perspective. A 10-kilowatt solar array with battery backup can cut your monthly energy costs to near zero. Triple-pane windows and spray foam insulation dramatically reduce heating and cooling loads. Over 10 or 15 years, those savings add up to real money. That is financially rational spending. But a meaningful portion of that $200,000 price tag is also going toward things that are beautiful but do not pay you back. Reclaimed wood feature walls cost 3 to 5 times what standard lumber costs, and do not perform 3 to 5 times better. Custom designer cabinetry, European tile work, smart lighting systems. These are lifestyle choices, and there is nothing wrong with making them. Just go in with clear eyes about what is an investment and what is a preference. Expense item. $60,000 budget build, 20 feet. $200,000 luxury build, 38 feet. Trailer/foundation. $7,500 standard tandem, $18,000 gooseneck heavy duty, HVAC, standard mini split, multi-zone plus ERV air exchange, power system, 30 amp grid tied, 10 kilowatts solar plus smart panel, interior finishes, plywood and standard laminate, reclaimed wood, quartz, SmartTech, windows, double pane vinyl, triple pane European tilt turn. That table tells the real story. The gap between these two homes is not just about aesthetics. It is a completely different approach to systems, materials, and long-term performance. Whether you're spending $60,000 or $200,000, there are costs that will catch you completely off guard if you're not prepared. This section could save you tens of thousands of dollars, so pay close attention. First, land. This is the cost that can completely blow up either budget. Land purchases range from $5,000 in rural areas all the way to $100,000 or more in suburban and urban markets. If you are renting a lot in a tiny home community, you are looking at $300 to $1,000 per month in 2026. Over 10 years, that is $36,000 to $120,000 added to your total cost of ownership. And unlike a mortgage payment, that money builds zero equity for you. Second, transportation and ongoing mobility costs. If you're buying a tiny home on wheels and having it delivered, delivery fees vary significantly by distance. And if you move it again later, you pay those fees again. Relocation permits, towing insurance, and tire replacement can add $1,500 to $3,000 every single year for a mobile tiny home. Most buyers never factor this into their budget. Third, financing costs. Tiny homes are notoriously difficult to finance through traditional mortgages. Most buyers end up using personal loans or RV loans, which carry significantly higher interest rates than a conventional home mortgage. On a $200,000 tiny home, financed through an RV loan at a high interest rate over 15 years, your total interest paid could easily add $30,000 to $50,000 to your overall cost. A permanent foundation build with full building code compliance opens up better financing options, but that code compliance adds to the upfront cost. Fourth, resale value. And this is where the two price points diverge dramatically. According to 2026 data, tiny homes on wheels depreciate at roughly 3 to 5% annually, similar to a vehicle. That means a $60,000 tiny home on wheels could be worth $45,000 to $50,000 in 5 years. Not catastrophic, but you need a plan for it. Foundation-based tiny homes, on the other hand, are actually appreciating alongside land values in many markets. But a $200,000 custom tiny home on wheels faces a very real risk of being nearly impossible to sell for anywhere near what you paid, especially without RVI certification, because the pool of cash buyers at that price is extremely thin. Alright, you have sat through the full breakdown. Now here is the honest verdict you have been waiting for. And I'm not going to be vague about this. I'm going to tell you exactly what the 2026 data actually says. Here is the truth about tiny home affordability in 2026, and I want you to really hear this. The word affordable is doing an enormous amount of heavy lifting in the tiny home world right now. It is being stretched to cover everything from a $30,000 DIY shell all the way to a $200,000 custom showpiece. And that is a real problem, because those two things are not the same lifestyle, not the same financial decision, and not the same type of buyer. By 2026, housing analysts are increasingly categorizing the $200,000 tiny home not as affordable housing, but as a luxury accessory dwelling unit, or luxury ADU. That reframing matters. An ADU is a lifestyle product for someone who values intentional design, sustainability, and minimalism, and has the financial resources to invest in something extraordinary. There is nothing wrong with that at all. But marketing it as affordable housing, just because it costs less than a traditional home in San Francisco, is a bit like calling a BMW affordable because it costs less than a Rolls-Royce. Technically true, not really the point. A budget built in the $50,000 to $60,000 range, with realistic all-in costs landing around $75,000 to $90,000, is still genuinely affordable housing in 2026, compared to a $390,000 national median home price. Even a $90,000 all-in tiny home represents a fundamentally different financial life. Lower loan payments, lower utility costs, lower insurance, lower property taxes in many cases. If affordable housing means spending dramatically less money to own a real home, the budget tier tiny home still earns that label. Here is my practical recommendation based on the 2026 data. If your goal is genuine affordability and financial freedom, target the $50,000 to $80,000 range for your build. Budget aggressively for land, hookups, permits, and a contingency fund. Consider a semi-professional build where you hire out the structural and systems work, but handle interior finishing yourself. That is where the real value lives in 2026. If your goal is a long-term primary residence with the best possible build quality, and you have the budget, spending on energy systems, insulation, and code compliance is actually financially rational over a 10 to 15-year window. The 2026 Tiny Housing Industry Cost Report supports this. Luxury upgrades deliver the strongest return when focused on energy efficiency and layout, not decorative trends. Focus on spending on things that reduce your ongoing costs, not on finishes that feel good but do not pay you back over time. And if someone is trying to sell you a $200,000 tiny home on wheels as an affordable housing solution, ask them some hard questions. Ask about RVA certification. Ask about resale comps in your area. Ask about financing options. Ask about what happens in 5 years when you want to sell it. The answers will tell you everything you need to know about whether that price tag is justified or whether you're paying a premium for a dream. That is the full $50,000 versus $200,000 breakdown for 2026. Real numbers, real data from the 2026 Tiny Housing Industry Cost Report, and no agenda. If this video helped you think more clearly about your tiny home budget, the single best thing you can do right now is subscribe to this channel. Every week I bring you honest, research-backed content about affordable housing, tiny homes, and alternative living. No sponsored builds, no fantasy numbers, just real information. Drop your questions in the comments below. I genuinely read them and I answer as many as I can. And check out the video on screen right now because it goes even deeper into tiny home financing and how to actually get a loan for a tiny home without getting crushed by interest rates. I will see you in the next one.